Hi Simone, so I'm having a look at your animation here, so let's have a look at it. Yeah, so more or less I think it's working. I think perhaps there's a couple of things that you could work on, so let's have a look at those. So there's something off with the pupil disappearing there at the beginning of the animation. I don't know what it is. In general, it's I think it would be better if the pupils were a bit more centered in here so that we see them a bit better. And then okay, so I think you will need, after this extreme pose, you will need a follow through. So if you hit with the head behind, you could possibly come back a bit further forward, or perhaps this could be the landing pose, and you can duplicate it a few frames later and just turn this pose on 24 as an extreme pose where the head is further to the back, so that you would then land in here. So your turn would be like so, then it would go a bit further back, and then it would settle down. So you would need a breakdown there to tell us what goes on in there. Then there's a problem probably with eye lines. I'm not really sure. In here it looks like the character is looking somewhere over there, but then in the end it looks like one eye is looking more or less in this direction, the other eye is looking a bit further up. So do not lose the focus. Make sure that wherever you were looking at the beginning, look at it at the end as well. Okay, that's very important. Then we have an anticipation here. Okay. I think on this anticipation, I think the ears should be up still, unless you do a breakdown in which the ears are up and then they come back down, because this is a down pose. I think the ears would go up as you push up this way. Would go down, sorry, as you push up that way. I'm tracking the left arm of the character, this guy here now, and we have this 90-degree rotation as we move up. I think in here you could perhaps rotate the palm so that it's a bit more like this, so that you already are spinning in the direction of the next pose, otherwise it's a bit extreme. And I'm not quite sure. Ah, yeah, now I get it. Okay. Sorry, I'm tracking this pose with the hand looks a bit random. I think you could perhaps have the hand maybe with the wrist with the hand facing us a bit more there. Right now this is a bit strange. And in here you could perhaps have the hand a bit more vertical towards us. Something like this. So you would have a clear arc. And I think perhaps in this pose you could rotate the wrist a bit more in this direction. Yeah, okay, cool. The right arm, sorry, I'm just checking stuff, so I'm not talking too much. So the other arm, let's see what it does. So the other arm, I'm not quite sure about the arc of the arm, because the arm the right wrist goes up this way, and then next thing we know, it goes up that way, right? But then next thing we know, you can, I don't think you can have this, sorry, it's just you have one frame, so we change the pose to this one, and the next frame you're already forward. I think it's too much. I think this should happen in a couple of frames at least. These two poses are too different to happen in one frame, and this as well, I think it's too fast to happen in just one frame, and again in one frame. I don't think you can animate on once in here. I don't think you can change the poses so quickly just in one frame, because it just doesn't read. You need a bit more time. Try and give the transition a couple of frames between these poses and see how it works. I think we went through it in the past feedback. It might be just a bit too fast. And track the arcs. Now, since you're going on one frame only, you cannot even track the arcs because you go this way, then you go straight that way, or actually a bit up there, and then the next thing we know, you're going down vertically. See that? And then so you're completely breaking the arc there. Try, if you have a bit more frames in there, you can give it a nicer arc. I think that in this pose, perhaps you don't need to go that far out with the hand. Maybe you could be a bit closer to the rest of the body, and then in here you could be perhaps a bit lower, still straight but a bit lower. And in here, let's see what happens there. In here, maybe not as low, say something over here, so that you're going for an arc there. And then you can go up there, and maybe as you go up in this pose, you can keep at least the index out so that you will close the index later. Actually, yeah, why are you even closing in a fist if you're opening up again? I would definitely, at this stage, I didn't notice that at this stage I would keep the hand a bit more open there, so that it's not a surprise that it opens up again up there. So you're going up this way, I suppose. And I would probably, as I come down, back down, I will come back down in this pose a bit further away from the silhouette of the head. Something like this, so that you will go down this way, I suppose. And what would be the arc between this pose and this pose? You will need a breakdown there because it's not very clear. How are you going to go there? Are you going to have a breakdown in which the hand goes forward this way, so it rolls around the elbow, so it does this arc, or you're going to go the other way? You gotta decide that. So you need a breakdown there. Now, apart from that, all good. Just you need more frames in there. You cannot animate on every single frame, change the pose entirely. Okay, if you do that, you need to track the arcs very well. Either way, you decide. If you want to go frame by frame, it's a very difficult thing to do at this level of experience, but you can do it. But I would say you're not tracking the arcs, so probably it's not a good idea to do it yet. Try and give it at least a couple of frames to see how it works. I don't think it will break the animation there. And if you realize it doesn't work, well, fair enough, point taken. You go back to 1 frame, but in which case you track the arcs. Okay, so from this angle, I think one thing that you could do in here is you could perhaps lower the body even more on this anticipation, and then the anticipation on the way back diagonally here works, but then you go back, so you see you're going down and up using the same arc. Usually we don't want that because the brain has troubles understanding that kind of motion on the same arc, or rather we connect a motion on a rail to a mechanical element, not to a character. So my suggestion here would be, instead of pushing that diagonally up, push a bit more in this direction. So what you would have done is you go down and then you come up this way. So you don't go down on the same arc you used to come up with. That means that on this pose you will be a bit further forward there. With the whole pose you just move everything forward there, so the whole character and everything. And it's a bit strange to see this character move up. Look at where the weight is, move up, and then move up again. The next thing we know, it goes down, and then it stays at that level and just translate horizontally. It seems like you forgot to animate the up and down of the character here. So in my opinion, if you're pushing up, you should keep pushing up a tiny bit and then stay up a tiny bit more there wherever you were, and then as you fall down to the contact, you start falling down in that direction. So then you can do something like falling down to the contact and move probably this way forward to the next poses. Okay, and I would expect this to be maybe a bit more arched in terms of line of action of the body, maybe the belly a bit more out, so that as a returning pose you return a bit straighter later on. And possibly on this last pose, or actually on this pose, you could possibly move slightly the whole rig to the right a tiny bit, just to give it some motion. That's it. Let's check the perspective. I think you could benefit from a top view in here rather than this perspective, just because this perspective is very similar. It's very similar to the camera you're actually using. It doesn't add much. What I would do is I would put maybe the top view in here and maybe the back view in here in the play blast, so that we can cross-check what happens in those views with what happens in here, and that will give you a lot more control over your animation. Other than that, it's going in the right direction. You just need to keep in mind arcs, especially for this kind of very quick motion. Arcs are really important. Have a good weekend. Bye bye.